Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm going to talk about an episode from season 4. This is episode 1, The Sermon. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you'd like to know when I'm posting a new video. Early in this episode, Rosemary Hunter announces to Olivia that she and Reverend Fordwick have set a wedding date. And this precipitates a couple things. One being that Rosemary wants to talk to Olivia because she asks Olivia if she will sit in for her as a substitute teacher while she and Matthew go on their honeymoon. And then at the same time, Reverend Fordwick approaches John Boy because he wants to ask John Boy to cover his Sunday sermon while he and Rosemary are on their honeymoon. So both Olivia and John Boy are faced with something that's potentially exciting to them, but also a little bit daunting to step in for Miss Hunter, who has had years of experience teaching the children, and for John Boy with Reverend Fordwick to feel wholly inadequate, having never studied anything about how to be, a minister. So they both have to find a way to overcome their own sense of inadequacy to step forward and help and also grow in their own right. We see John Boy as he's struggling. He's taking out books. He's studying the Bible. He's studying about religion and things like that. He doesn't know what the topic should be and what he won't feel wholly inadequate to stand up and say. And it's not aided by the fact that poor Beth and Mrs. Brimmer are saying they can't possibly imagine what John Boy would have to say, and why would he be asked to do it, and he's standing there and overhearing this, and then Grandma says she's going to help, and she has all kinds of ideas for him. So he is definitely struggling with this. Meanwhile, Olivia is struggling to teach. She's getting attitude from the children. She's being challenged by Martha Rose. She's just getting no help. The kids are misbehaving and just making her feel like, and reminding her that she is not Miss Hunter, particularly Jim Bob, who has not done his homework and puts Olivia in a difficult position when she calls on him, thinking that he will be her out, and instead he becomes the next problem. So she makes him stay after school, and they struggle together. I did note in this episode there was another case of a number of our siblings being there. We've talked about that quite often where there were group scenes and they needed extras, that our siblings would be there. So in this case, early on, you see my brother Dave sliding down the railing as we exit school, and you also see Jeffrey, Cammie's little brother, walk past in the very front. Once we were in this schoolroom, then there is, in the back row left, is Elaine, Mary's sister. And then in front of her, you can only see a piece of him, is Jeff, Cammie's brother. Next to Eric is Dana, Eric's real life brother. So there you've got 4 of our siblings all represented there in the schoolroom. So fun to see them. One of my favorite sequences from this episode involves Grandma, Ellen Corby. I thought she was so brilliant. She's, as Grandma, who is so passionate about her relationship with religion, with God, with the Bible, and how she likes church to be. And she talks with John Boy about these revivals that would go on for days with different preachers coming in. And so she takes all of her years and years of wisdom and experience and wants to impart that to John Boy. And so she has theme ideas for him. And I love this scene where she calls John Boy into her room and she's demonstrating and pounding on the desk and giving him all this. And I love how the pages keep falling onto the floor. I do not know that was scripted. I think it may have happened accidentally, and I think there's an ad lib where she says, no, don't let that happen. I think that was potentially ad lib stuff, and of course, as often happens with our show, those little happy accidents that the actors stay in character, and we can use those gems in the final edit. But, and I love how Grandpa's listening in. And after John Boy leaves, that he comes in and takes care of her hand, and just how much he loves and admires her and who she is, and what's important to her, that despite the fact that we see the points where Grandma is annoyed with Grandpa, you have these opportunities to see the core of that relationship and the love that's there and the respect. And I really, really love that aspect of those two characters. There is a lot of family advice that goes on in this episode. Grandma, of course, advises John Boy. And, John talks with John Boy about his own recommendation that John Boy find his own way. And John also encourages Olivia along the way with the struggle that she's having. So a lot of representations of the family being there for each other and trying to help each other through challenges in their lives. Besides Grandma giving John Boy advice, John Boy goes up on the mountains. He's still trying to find his way with all of this. And Grandpa comes along, and Grandpa gives him really good advice. He gives John Boy perspective on not only Grandma's relationship with God, but his own relationship. And of course, John Boy is aware of that John, his own dad, doesn't necessarily attend church regularly, but knows that John is very spiritual in his own way. So John Boy has an opportunity to get a different sort of advice from different members of the family, and all of this helps him towards finding his own path forward. And to me, that's really what this episode is about, is each of us having to find our own journey, our own path forward, and the one that works for us, and that we can't necessarily try to walk in someone else's footsteps. We can't try to copy what somebody else has done. That we really need to find our own path and find how to be true to ourselves in the best way possible. And I think ultimately John Boy finds that, and finds the message that he can deliver in a sincere manner, and not feel like he is speaking from a place that he has no reality. Talking about different sorts of sets, most of the time the interiors were done on sound stages and the exteriors were done somewhere on the studio lot. In the case of the schoolroom, that was the actual interior of that building. So when John comes in to rescue Olivia and Jim Bob, in a sense, he actually does come into that from a side door rather than the front door. You sort of see him enter the front, but when he enters, he's actually has come in through the side door of the actual interior space. But that was the interior, and we would shoot those schoolroom scenes right in there. A wonderful sequence up on the mountain, and this would have been up in Fraser Park, and we would have spent an entire day on location. So with an episode like this, they work out having enough scenes to justify spending a whole day away on location. If there'd only been one scene, they would have figured out how to film it on the back lot, because it's not worth it to go all the way up on location for just one scene. So here they've built it so that it includes this wonderful sequence. We had the scenes with Grandpa, which were shot on location. There was some early stuff that was on location. And then this whole sequence when John decides to finish up work early, and that they're going to have a picnic. They're going to have a meal up on the mountain. And it is good for all of them. It helps Olivia find her perspective. It helps John Boy find his. And we have an opportunity to watch Olivia watch John interact with different members of the family, with his children, and for her to appreciate who he is. And we get another opportunity to see the wonderful relationship between the two of them. So really an episode also about the family relationships and those dynamics, and wonderful examples about the best ways in which a family can be there to help and support and interact with each other. Ultimately, the episode wraps up with John Boy's sermon, and he speaks from the perspective of what he's learned during this journey of of discovery about what he wanted to say, and it really becomes more about the path that he took to get there and what he learned. So that does then resonate with the congregation, and so it brings about a nice wrap up for all of the stories that we have been following during the course of the episode. That's what I have for you for this segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons about the season 4 episode, The Sermon. I will be back with more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.